Hello, and welcome to the Closer's Playbook, a podcast about selling your services as a freelancer. My name's Tyler Poole. I'm here with my co-host, Pete Beber.
Good afternoon, Tyler.
Good afternoon, sir.
Knocking out another one.
Exactly. So Pete and I were chatting before we turned on the mic, and he was telling me a pretty interesting story about his day that ties in with several things that we've talked about in the podcast. So we wanted to turn on the mic and get this recorded because I think it's a good lesson that builds on some stuff that we've talked about in the past. So Pete, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, so this morning we had just a team call talking about things that are going on. And somebody had mentioned a deal that they had just closed with a current customer. And this deal was larger than the initial business that we've done, any of the initial business that we've done with them. And it was in a little bit of a different area. And so, than what was expected. And so, it was a great deal. Customer was very happy about it. And, what was attributed to this deal was continuous discovery.
Okay.
So, we've talked about business reviews.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about discovery in general. Like, these are all opportunities for it. This peer of mine went just, all the time is asking about what's going on. They're paying attention to the customer. They're asking about other stakeholders. Hey, who else does this touch? Who else does this impact? Who else might have concerns about what we're working on? Those types of questions, because to bring more people in provides potentially more opportunity. Different problems that you might be able to solve. This isn't going to work, getting contacts in different departments and things like that might not make sense in some industries, but it's great if you can have more people there. And that's part of what was attributed to this: more discovery, more stakeholders, and bringing them in.
Okay. How was the discovery done during a normal follow-up call?
So, it's a great question. So I don't know is the short answer exactly when, but I know this person and they have, meetings every couple of weeks with this client. They do business reviews every quarter. So they're in pretty constant communication. And a lot of times you might get like a little nugget in one of these meetings and you just jot down a note and then you go back and you're like, okay, hey, you mentioned this before. I want to dig in a little bit deep. In fact, I did that this afternoon with a customer who's new to me.
Okay.
I'm working with another peer on this account. We share it. And, this person, so I'm new to the account. My peer is somewhat new to the account. This is the first time we're talking with the C-level. Okay. And so
C-level. Define that.
So a chief officer.
Okay.
So I'm not going to say which one, but it's not
Sure.
It's CEO, CFO, CPO, CRO.
Yep.
Yeah,
I just wanted to define that.
Yeah. So so this is, the top level. They make decisions for this global organization. And we said, hey, we haven't talked before, but when we initially started working together as companies, this was the stated goal. Mm-hmm. And it was, did anything change? They said, still high priority for us. And then they kept sort of talking and I jotted down a note and, we had probably 7 minutes left on the call and it was just like, flashing in my mind, like I have to ask about this. And I said, hey, you mentioned that our initial goal is still important, but like, I really like to dig in on that with you. How are you measuring it? If you are, how are you measuring it? Does this tie into a corporate initiative? Mm-hmm. Is this a department initiative? Is this something that you personally care about? Help me understand so that we can, see if it's something that we can help you achieve.
Okay. So what, you said you mentioned, you heard a nugget. What do your notes look like during a meeting? What things do you consider nuggets?
I'm a terrible note taker.
Okay.
In that, like, people will be like, somebody's typing. I'm like, oh, sorry, I forgot to go on mute. But I'm just like, I'm almost like word for word a lot of times. Okay. It's not efficient, but it gets a lot of detail.
I was going to say, so what? Let's skip that the notes part and let's.
But I pulled that out. I gave a bunch of space around it and was like, go here, and then I put some questions. I put those questions out. I put like goal and then my initial thought questions on it, and then I went back and I just went back to that. And I go, hey, I want to return to this. Mm-hmm. So I made it so I could see it in my notes. I use OneNote for my notes, so I'm typing it up on the computer. I honestly can't write nearly as fast as I type, so that's part of it. Also, I can go back to it and I can search it at any time. Right. So
makes sense.
So I just went back and to that, and they were like, yeah. And I said, we've seen some studies that show that would have this type of impact. And he's like, could you send me that study? That's in line with what we see. But I always like to have studies that tell me if I'm on the right track or if I'm on the wrong track, right? Mm-hmm. And so it'd be great to see that. So we send them as a follow-up that study. Now, and then he told me, this is something that I have as a lever to pull for projects for the rest of this year and all of next year. Okay, so now this is important to them globally. This is a chief officer at the organization who's already measuring this particular goal. And I know from working with other companies that we could do a great job in this area. And so we had a very excited, because there was other stuff too that we learned through this call. My peer had asked, we actually had one of our VPs on, and she was asking as well. It was an overall great conversation. First time we've all talked, and it was just pure discovery. But going back and keying in, when they say something is important, it's one thing to know that it's important, but it's another thing to understand why it's important and the impact that it's going to have. Yeah. And if they can't articulate that, it's probably not as important, right, as you initially thought.
Yep. It's funny you say that, because I had a call this morning that I thought was going to be a closing of an account. The original project was done, and it was kind of okay, here's the summary, here's what happened, here's what went right, and he, during this call, he had said, now we just got to focus on X. And I'm like, X? ? Pause. Yeah. And he told me all about X, and I now have a new project working on X. There you go. And it was a nice little, like I said, I fully expected it to be the end of a project, and the project was fine, and it went well, and it was over. And, like we talked about last week, I had other people in the funnel ready to go, but now I've got another project.
So discovery doesn't have to be really complicated. No. You can just say X and leave it out there, right? Just repeat what they said in the form of a question. And you said that he just shared everything about that project. Yeah, and
this goes back to, I think we've talked about the referrals and getting extra business, and the easiest people to sell to are people who you're already working with. They like me. We just completed a successful project. Yeah, it was easy to. It took me 10 minutes to sell this.
And if you're working with larger companies, there's a cost to set up a new contractor, a new supplier, vendor, whatever, service provider. There's a cost to that to every business. And so it's easier for you to keep working with a business. Yeah. It's easier for them. Right. If you can continue to provide value to them, then they don't have to go out and now we got to go find somebody new. We've got to go do this. We've got to get them in our system. We've got to cut them a check. We've got to. It's just easier.
Think of all the things that go into hiring a new employee, and you're able to. Not only are you able to sell them the service, but they don't have to do all that stuff. It's a win-win.
Yeah. So, I think just keep doing discovery, keep asking questions, be curious about your customers, be curious about what's driving the need or the interest in things. you'll find some great nuggets in there. I mean, we're talking like the business that my peer closed this morning is several $1 million. That's a great day.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
100%.
What I ran into this afternoon could be similar.
Mm-hmm.
And now when I talk to this executive and to anyone that reports up through him, I know what I need to be focused on. And so, and I can say, hey, your executive said this is important and this is why, and that's why we're doing it. And so, and I can ask, do you have a different take?
Yep.
Right. I can ask for other things.
Yeah. It makes your job easier because you know what they're going after, and allows you to drive home to that point.
Yep. Yeah. Awesome. So keep asking questions. Stay curious.
One more question for you.
Yeah.
How often do you do these meetings? Whether it's a scheduled business review or a follow-up, how often should it be done?
I'd love to say there was this is the absolute what you should do. It varies even within my own customers and within the people that I'm working with. This executive, I might only have 2 other conversations with this executive because we're gonna tie off on how we execute on this for them, and then he's gonna give me a team of people that I'm gonna go work with, and I'll keep him in the loop.
Sure.
Right, but he's not gonna need to be on all these meetings. He's moving the biggest rocks in the company. They get smaller as you go further down the line.
Are you saying you're not a big rock?
And I like to work with big rocks. But he's gonna delegate me to the team who's actually gonna execute. Now the team that's gonna execute, there's probably gonna be a few months where we have weekly or more often than weekly calls, and then once we get to everything launched, we might go off into bi-weekly, monthly,
sure.
And then even potentially for some of those people, we may never talk to them again. Others we might only see on quarterly reviews.
Okay. Yeah, my point behind that question was that find something that works for your business. You don't need to be talking to your clients every week. In fact, almost all of my clients I'm set up monthly with. And that's just what works for me. But maybe if you have, sometimes a lot of people, I have a photographer friend who will set up a call a week after the product's delivered. Yeah. And then in a lot of cases, we'll never talk to that person again. Right. Or maybe they get some return work. But set something up that works for you and makes sense for you.
Yeah. Right? Try different things.
Yep.
And you probably heard this meeting could have been an email. Don't just schedule a meeting to have a meeting. Right. But have a purpose.
Yep.
So, and you'll have that purpose by doing really good discovery continuously with your clients. So
there you go.
Thanks for listening to the end. Appreciate you. Please share with anyone who you think might also find this, a good episode or any of our back episodes. Yeah. We're on YouTube and anywhere you get podcasts.
All your major podcast places.
Cool.
See you guys next week.